Hello and welcome to Living on the Wire, week 13, the final week. That's it, we have reached the zenith. We are right there on the edge, just tipping over into the playoffs or into the shit bowl. Whichever way it is that your team is moving, you're probably still scrambling around looking for waiver wire cover for flexies and buys and injuries, and everybody's looking for running backs. There just doesn't physically seem to be enough running backs this year. So we're going to have a close look to see how we got on. Sorry for the late addition this week. I know that one or two of these we already know how they've turned out after the Raiders somehow managed to lose that game with Baker Mayfield getting the winning drive right at the end. Who would have thought it? He did alright. I cannot stand Baker Mayfield. He's a weird looking, beady eyed guy that seems pretty arrogant. But because of how the Browns treated him, I can't help but root for him. I really hope he does incredibly well and that they deeply regret going for Deshaun Watson. However, it pans out there. But anyway, let's get on to a little look inside how our league is spending their waiver wire budgets. And we changed it this week to the $5 boys because every single person on this list went for $5. So $5 lands the Claymores, Kenyon Drake, as Robin tries to scramble to get some running backs in there. As I said before, lots of injuries, lots of bye weeks, lots of running backs missing in action, and everybody trying to look for the same kind of player. Wide receivers, there seems to always be someone you can grab to cover you, but running backs is tough. Another $5 saw the Gators land Homer, same thing, looking for another running back. It looks like there's some injury issues and injury worries at the Seahawks, so it's hard to know exactly who's playing, as we'll touch on as we get later on. But if he's fully fit and playing, you'd expect him to get an okay score there, a team that's doing pretty well. Then the next $5 boy is Huntley. Allen has grabbed a third QB for his team. His starting QB Fields is out. He won't want to drop him because when he's playing, he's an absolute match winner. However, he's maybe just not quite trusting Tannehill, who's looking at like 15 points a game. He's had a knock and he's struggled a little bit, and he's not quite playing as well as he was earlier in the season. And you know they've got their backroom issues, so he's probably just thinking, you know what, I'll grab Huntley. Lamar Jackson's not playing. It's a coin cost there as to who to start. So he'll be hoping that that works out for him. If not, it's only $5 spent and a backup wide receiver dropped. And then it is Robin again as the Claymores scoop up a tight end, dropping Robert Tonyan, who's not exactly doing fantastically well in a Packers team that hasn't been doing fantastically well, for David Njoku, who's one of these guys who sometimes just seems to get a massive score out of nowhere and then disappears again for a few weeks or gets an injury or moves on. And I feel like at this point he's played for half of the teams in the league. It's just one of these guys I seem to see popping up in the waivers all the time. And next, discount shopping. These guys were all less than $5, every single one of them. Bargains, bargains. The Chieftains, Allen, scooping up the Titans defense. They did me really well for a few weeks there. They've had a tough couple of weeks, tough couple of games, but probably just got a slightly more favourable matchup than the Cleveland Browns. And Allen loves checking out those matchups and making sure he's got the best defense going. Always changing over. Then it's the Claymores again. Robin swapping out the Jets defense, who have actually been doing really, really, really well for the Raiders. But who would you rather your defense was up against? The Rams, who have been struggling, and you know at the time that Robin did it, didn't even know who was going to be playing at quarterback. Or would you rather have your defense up against the Bills, that just seem to be picking back up again? They've had a lull, they've had a few weeks where scoring's not been flowing naturally, but they look like they're starting to come back just in time for the playoffs. So yeah, the matchup, all about the matchup there. And then Noah Fant, another tight end swap. Seattle, they seem to have two tight ends, pretty interchangeable, pretty, you know, well rotated. They both get their chances. Disley or Fant, you don't know which one's going to get more of the ball. It's a toss of a coin each week to see which one comes up with the touchdown pass or the big scoring game. Downey will be hoping that he's got the right guy this week. And then finally Waller, due back from injury soon, and if he can capture any of his former glory, perfect player to have in your team, whether it's the playoffs or the shit bowl, could be smart business there for just $1. And Hunter Henry, tight ends of that sort of level seem to be right there in the waiver every week, so they can always pick someone up if Waller's not back. And here I've just lumped all the no more money boys all together. Much of a muchness here. Keith steals the Steelers defense and he drops the Saints. Trent Sherfield, if that's even a name, had a great week for the Dolphins. So Steve will just be hoping for more of the same. But it's, there's quite a lot of wide receivers there, all looking for some action. He's probably good there for a bit of a roll of the dice, but we will see who ends up scoring more points there. My fingers are crossed that it's all about Hill again this week after last week's disappointment for me personally, but we'll see. Robin, I got some bad news for you. Gainwell doesn't gain well. Every so often you look at him because he has a good game or he does well and you think, oh yeah, he'll be alright. My fingers are crossed for you, but yeah, every time I've scooped him up, he's not done anything for me, so we'll see there. With Benny Snell not really getting much action at Pittsburgh on his comeback. Keith grabbing a kicker, just getting rid of Yonko, who bringing in Badgley. Not much to say there, just obviously picking your best matchup you can. And then Luke trying to fashion together a running back room for his matchup against his rival. He's picked up DJ Dallas, who again, we don't really know what's happening with the Seahawks. They seem to have quite a lot of players that can run the ball. They're quite happy to, do things by committee and have lots of people get lots of chances. It just will depend on whether Walker's fit. It'll just depend on who they plan to play for the matchup. But if he's playing, Luke will be happy. The Blobfish, move on from Jimmy G. Boys, if you'd got him earlier when I first started banging that drum, you had a good quarterback for a few weeks. But obviously with him injured and it looking like he's not coming back until the playoffs, they've scooped up Heineke as their backup. And yeah, the Owls getting Greg Dulcich, who I seem to have to absolutely butcher and murder this boy's name every single week. So in my mind, this is his 100th team of the year. Just another little tight end who will some weeks have a good game, some weeks doesn't. You hope he just has a good week the week that you get him, but does nothing particularly special. And they will be hoping he does something special for him. And then we have the also rans. We have just what was left after the fact. There was a few more also rans that were picked up a little bit after this, but when I've made the PowerPoint, these I think were the ones that were there. Demarcus Robinson, good flex option against the Steelers. He seems to be getting used a bit more often, but we'll see, because obviously not 100% sure who's going in at quarterback there and how well prepped they'll be for that game. Downey at the Dragons picking up Isaiah Hodgins. I feel like there seems to be a new wide receiver coming out of the Giants wide receiver room just all the time, and when they do, Andy's one of the first to pick him up. I don't get it. I myself always try and avoid grabbing players from my own team just because I don't know, it feels like same with the gambling on my own team. I always worry that you're just asking for trouble. And then Telfie picking up the last couple there. The Dolphins defense in place for the Packers. Packers aren't exactly reliable either side of the ball at the moment, so I can see why he's gone for that. And he's got in Tony Jones, who, as I've mentioned, at Seattle, don't know who's going to be fit. We don't know who's going to be playing, and there's a good chance that he does get a game. Last time he had to step on the field as running back star, he did incredibly well. So he'll be quietly hoping that, if Luke's guy's not playing, his guy will be. So why not hedge those bets? Okay, we whizzed through that super fast. What I might have a little look at is over all the previous sort of waiver wire things, because I've got a lot of them. stored away obviously on my computer at this point, is I might have a little look after this to see what the best and worst waiver wire pickups have been as far as losing money. Have a shout out in the chat if you think you picked up a particularly bad or a particularly good waiver wire transaction, either because it won you a game or because they came a starter for you the whole time, or because you spent $90 and they didn't do anything. Let me know who you think. I'll have a little look at the stats and maybe I'll come up with some awards for the waiver wires for the year. Next year, fancy this thing up and get into more of a routine if people have an appetite for it. But before we go on to our award, big spender Robin and the Claymores, picking up quite a few players, a lot of action, a lot of $5 bids, using up the rest of that money. Why not? They're the big spender of the week. Greg still saving up, very few changes there, very little money spent, still could outbid anybody for anything. And the You Tried award was actually quite tricky because there was a few players that I think missed out on 3 players that they went for. So it really was a toss of a coin, but I mostly just giggled at the fact that Gary was already a mixture of Gary and Ray. So I went for the boys at the Blobfish. You went for a few players, you didn't get them, you got 1 or 2 in the end. So there was no big losers, but yeah, you tried, guys, you tried. That's it for me this week. I'm afraid no funny anecdotes, no stories to tell you, just powering through the news of the league. My season's over. I'm not going to anywhere near those playoffs. But what I'm hoping is all of you out there who are listening to me, you need to keep Alan in the toilet bowl, because I'm going to finish him. I'm going to just put him down the toilet head first. I'm going to flush. I'm finally going to get that win over Alan. I can feel it. I can taste it. I can smell it. It's making my tongue tingle, my toes tingle. The juices are flowing. I'm ready to beat Alan. I wasn't ready, but after that last defeat, I can taste it. I'm so ready. So I might not be going anywhere those playoffs, but please, please, please make sure you're just sending Alan my way. Send him to me. Everyone who needs to do something, you do it, and you get Alan in the toilet bowl. Well, there you go. I've said it all. May the fantasy football gods be kind. Except to Jago. Fuck you, Jago.